Alright, what's going on, guys? So, what's going on, guys? So, as the title suggests, I did not enjoy the Chaos Reigns DLC at all. I really wanted to. I really wanted to give it every benefit of the doubt. I really tried to enjoy it, but it is quite bad. Now, I'm going to, in this video, I'm going to be going over some of the more individual things that I didn't like, but I'm not going to be showing much footage because it is day one, so I don't want to spoil too much, but I want to give an outline of what it quote-unquote offers the player. Now, this was the DLC expansion. The base version costs $50. That includes the 6 new fighters. You get Noob Saibot, Cyrax and Sector immediately, and then the 3 guest characters down the line, plus the story expansion, which, if you remember, for MK11 Aftermath DLC, I believe it was $40. You got the story expansion, and then you got, I think it was only 3 characters because it was after they already did 2 combat packs, so it was just like bonus characters. Believe it was Melina, Rain, and what's his face? The guest character, the guy, I forget his name, Rambo. I believe that's what it was. But that story was done incredibly well. They got Shang's actor back to reprise his role, his original actor. The scenes, the choreography, everything was done so well. I didn't like Aftermath's story, personally, because they did a 180 and completely, basically crapped all over everything that MK11 worked to achieve. But it was done well where I could respect it. Now that brings us to Chaos Reigns story, which, as a gamer, as a Mortal Kombat fan, diehard fan, I cannot respect this dumpster fire one bit. It's 1000% a cash grab, and if you can't respect my opinion, I really don't care, because analytically speaking, it is 1000% a cash grab, and I will go over that briefly. This isn't probably the only video that I'm going to make about this, but it is the first. Now, just the story alone. Still fresh on the mind. I just completed it. You get 5 chapters, right? The first chapter, you're playing as Cyrax. Again, like Aftermath did, nothing new. To have the DLC characters be part of your DLC story, that makes sense. That's perfectly fine. Starting things off, to sum this up, the entire premise of this story, or of this chapter, is just that the Link Way, which is still being ran by Bihan, and Cyrax and Sector apparently were in MK1 story the whole time, the female versions, but they were staying at their temple or whatever when MK1 story was going on, because that's the only logical explanation, because they reference Kuai Liang and his treachery and blah blah yada yada, and they think he betrayed them. So clearly they were present when Kuai Liang was still part of the Link Way. So they just weren't in the game, they just made it up. They were out doing their nails or something, I don't know. Or something less sexist. They were out beating up bad guys. That's the only explanation. So Bihan is filling their heads with, oh, Hua Liang betrayed us. He's marrying Harumi, his wife right there, or his future wife. He's offended all the stuff that we stand for, and he created his own clan, the Shiraiyu, right? So Cyrax and Sector are go like, alright, yeah, let's go beat him up or whatever. They crash his wedding. Literally, the entire chapter is just wedding stuff. I don't even know if they actually end up getting married, because spoiler, they crash the wedding. Nothing. They don't even start their vows or anything. Also, the funny thing about this scene is this is a wedding, right? And you can kind of see smoke in the background there, but there's Johnny, Smoke, and MK1's Raiden. Not Titan Raiden, even though Titan Raiden is in the game, but I can understand him not being part of Scorpion's friends. So there's Smoke, MK1 Raiden's, and MK1 Johnny in the background. They're all wearing their outfits, like their normal outfits, their fighting outfits. Not a single one of them is dressed for a wedding. And while you might not think that's a big deal, this all is backing up the fact that this entire DLC is 1000% a cash grab, and they do not care about anything. Even micro details like that are easily rectified in a game that you can have a million skins for. This is a wedding, and they reused those characters in their fighting outfits. Okay. That sums it up. They crash the wedding. Cyrax quickly realizes that she's on the wrong side of things. So Sector is still being, they got Cyrax and Sector's personalities done right, where Cyrax was always the more level-headed one, and Cyrax, was generally on the good side of things, whereas Sector was more abrasive, like Bihan, or the original Sub-Zero, and always led to trouble and death and mischief and everything like that. They got that part right. So Cyrax quickly overcomes with regret and changes sides, and Scorpion's wife asks her, I don't want to get too much into the micro details, but Scorpion's wife convinces him to spare her. And then Sector and Bihan are being taken prisoner to Outworld to face Melina's wrath, because they obviously, again, off screen, because Sector wasn't an MK1 story, but she is also implemented in betraying everyone in the timeline like Bihan did in the actual story. Even though she wasn't in the story at all of MK1, she is also assumed to have been part of that coup to basically screw everyone over in the timeline. So she is also brought to judgment by Empress Melina. And now we're in chapter 2. This is Sector's chapter. Surprise. Sector doesn't get any punishment or anything at all. Nobody does. This chapter is literally, it's Melina. We're in Outworld right now, right? We're Empress Melina, because Melina's the Empress now. Sindel's dead. And Ermac has lost his mind again or whatever, so he's not like Katana's and Melina's father or whatever. He's not in the right mind wherever he is. So Empress Melina, she has a whole new get up, the pre-order skin. Katana's kind of like hanging around in the corner, advising her and whatnot. The Sector and Bihan are being brought to trial. They start, going over their punishment or whatever, and then a portal opens up. Now you saw this in the cutscene, in the trailers. Havoc walks in with his Chaos Army. You can see them all there. This icon right here is very important in the simple fact that Raiden The Chaos Raiden is voiced by the Titan Raiden, which is also voiced by the original Raiden that we know and love voice actor. It's not an MK1 Raiden. Again, Titan Raiden is in the game. And I keep making a point about that because he never shows up, spoiler. But he's voicing this Chaos Raiden. Havoc walks in, madness ensues. As I mentioned, Empress Melina and War Chief Katana are standing right there. And this is Outworlds we are talking about in the throne room. You want to know what they do? They run off screen after a fight ensues. Apparently to go, go fight some other Havoc's minions or whatever. But they run off screen, quite literally. Like I'll watch it again, but I'm pretty sure you don't even see them like in the background. They run off screen. Sector is fighting everybody with, this is the only thing, or only one of the, because I don't talk all negative. I like to talk about what they do right too, but this is a negative video, and I'm going to make a positive video about what I did like about the DLC. But that's a much smaller list. But to mention real quick, they fixed Chameleon, that character that turns into all the female ninjas, or the female ninjas that they like to talk about. They fixed her character by giving her voice lines and also actually making her cameo do something in the story, even though she was in MK1 story, but they didn't let her do anything. So they fixed that mistake. So pretty much this entire chapter is Sector and Chameleon. Then oh yeah, Havoc was there to kidnap Geras, because Geras is the Time Lord again. If you remember correctly, Liu Kang gave him his powers back to be Keeper of Time and, ensure that duty as the team, as a Keeper of Time. So Havoc is there to kidnap Geras. He has been going through all the timelines, merging them with his own Chaos Realm, and kidnapping all the Gerases because he wants to utilize him for something, which I'm going to get to in then probably the next chapter of this DLC, quote unquote. He succeeds in kidnapping Geras because the guy who controls time can't be bothered to do any special moves or stop time or freeze anybody or whatever for 99.9% of the game at least. He does one thing all the way at the end. We'll get to that. They kidnap Geras like immediately. I'm holding back my laughter because it's just that bad. Immediately they kidnap him. Also Liu Kang, who is also in this throne room, Fire God Liu Kang, can't stop any of this. He can't even attack anybody. He can't do anything. They kidnap him. They bring him to Chaos Realm. So now immediately after this happens, Melina's like, alright, we're gonna rally the troops. We're gonna go get them. We're gonna do this. You know what Liu Kang says? Oh yeah, briefly, because when I'm gonna rewind a little bit real quick. Right before Bihan and Sector's trial started, they also mentioned that General Shao from MK1 escaped, and it's presumed that, I'm guessing that Reiko's probably with them or whatever. So them two are out on the run and they're rallying troops, and there's like this kind of like nothing's ever shown, but they're mentioning that there's kind of like a coup, and Outworld has a fight on their hands. So fast forward to what I was just saying. Melina's like, we're gonna rally the troops, we're gonna go after him, he's threatening our realm, our timeline, etc. Empress Melina, go, go, go. Liu Kang says, no, you're needed here, because what if General Shao attacks you? And Katana's armies are already spread thin or whatever, so Katana can't go either, and nobody in Outworld can go. Forget about Outworld. We're not doing anything Outworld. Screw Outworld. Not literally, but that's what basically the story's telling you. Forget about Outworld. They don't exist. We don't care about Outworld. Which would be fine if they made the story better than what it is. Because there are other realms besides Outworld and Earth Realm, but apparently I guess they forget that. So what Liu Kang says to protect the timeline is that because Sector and Cyrax and a couple other people, Scorpion for some reason, don't have anything to do, they can go and stop the world from ending. Like 5 people, literally. So like 5 people are gonna go stop the world ending, right? So they said those 5 people to what is in the next chapter is the Chaos Realm. So there's actually a Chaos Realm, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, I'm going to make another video about what I liked about the game. Also, to note, briefly before, when all the madness was happening in Outworld, Sub-Zero Bihan chased after Havoc, and he got sucked into the portal. So Sector goes along too because she wants to find her. It's her Grandmaster, but at the end I got vibes that they were sleeping together. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. So I'm pretty sure it was her boyfriend too, or whatever. Because she also knew all her secrets and everything, all his secrets. So now this is a split. The first chapter, they never leave the throne room. And that's the only time you will ever see Outworld. Them just fighting these random fights in the throne room. And yes, Melina, Katana, everyone from Outworld is just left behind. They don't care about any of them for the rest of the DLC. So just forget about that. Nobody from the DLC matters. That is from Outworld. I'm being sarcastic, of course, because it's nonsense, but sure. So now we're in the Chaos Realm. Everything's so chaotic when it's literally like an Outworld marketplace. All they're doing is walking around in and out. All they're doing is walking around in an Outworld marketplace, essentially, but it's the Chaos Realm. And their adventures here, because MK1 Johnny wasn't enough, even though they do utilize him quite heavily in the DLC. Granted, they hardly use anybody from even the MK1 story. We get introduced to another Johnny. This Johnny is from 1944. And now 1944 Johnny also mentions that his commanding officer, when Havoc went to his timeline and kidnapped him, or he got sucked into the Chaos Realm or whatever, his commanding officer is no other than, drumroll, General Blade. Now it obviously couldn't be Sonya Blade, because we're talking about 1944 Johnny, but it's probably her father or her grandfather. And that was a missed opportunity to incorporate some kind of version of the character into the game. They've gender bend so many characters at this point. Also, this is on screen right now. This is the only time you will see Ermac, and it's the Chaos version. It has, again, nobody from actual Outworld is in this game. So Chaos Ermac, Chaos Reptile, Chaos Baraka shows up, get into a little fight in the marketplace, nothing happens. Say Reptile, Ermac, whatever, nothing happens. Now, still trying to find Bihan, still trying to rescue Geras from Havoc. They stumble into the Chaos Coliseum. The Chaos Coliseum is filled with a bunch of Havocs, or I'm pretty sure it's just all versions of Havoc. They also meet Emperor Rain, who was part of either this timeline or the one before it, before Havoc took over what he's trying to do to our timeline. And this chapter is just everyone's an emperor, empress, a former emperor, empress, and everyone is in relations. That's what I call it. Whether they are literally related to each other or if they are married. So Rain, Emperor Rain, because again, it's not Outworld Rain, it's Emperor Rain from whatever timeline, is married to Emperor Tanya. Again, not MK1 Tanya, random Tanya, who's an empress. Now he is looking for Empress Tanya. They stumble into this Coliseum. They find Empress Tanya. It's like a gladiator match, she's being forced to fight. Havoc's minion Kenshi spots them, makes them fight in the Coliseum as well. Another fight ensues. Empress Tanya. Rain links up with his wife. This chapter is Rain, by the way. You play as Rain. So far we had Cyrax, Sector, and then now Rain. That's who you're playing as in the first 3 chapters of the DLC. Rain finds his wife. Fight ensues. We end up in a maze. It's a chaos maze, which is like a game that Havoc plays with his subjects, and it changes. And there's literally like he watches it on TV. It's a game show to him. So we're trying to escape the maze. There's Rain, Tanya, Cyrax, Sector, Scorpion again for no reason, because he's another person who does like nothing, along with Liu Kang and Geras, shown in the DLC. He does nothing. He's just kind of there. They're trying to escape the maze. They fight a bunch of versions of other married people or related people. A random Mohawk version of Katana and Melina. A random Lime and Reiko, who apparently are married and emperors too, in this timeline or from their timeline or whatever. And then at the end of it, something happens to Rain and he can't join them anymore. So then we get to chapter 4. Now we're in Tanya's shoes. She was there for the last chapter too, because like I said, we found her with Rain, trying to escape some maze or whatever. They find this dragon, which, again, I actually found this chapter kind of interesting, because it was unexpected. But I'm going to talk about that in a video of things I actually liked. So, I'm just going to end the thought there. They find this dragon. It turns out to be... The dragon tries to, kill them first. And then they have to do a couple battles with Mohawk, Melina and Katana. They also eventually... Actually, rewind real quick. They do the battles with Melina and Katana, the Chaos versions. They go back to the dragon. It turns out Tanya, or this Tanya at least, is a telepath. So she communicates with the dragon telepathically. And basically says, hey, we don't mean you any harm. We're not trying to beat you up, whatever. So the dragon says, cool, bro. Come closer, we'll talk. So they talk. The dragon agrees to help them. It turns out it's a dimensional shift dragon, so it could open portals. So now they finally open, it starts to open a portal. Havoc realizes what they're trying to do because the maze was inescapable unless the dragon had decided to help them. So he tries to stop the dragon. It doesn't work, obviously. They end up getting out. They bump into Noob Saibot, which is obviously Bihan, or obviously was Bihan before Havoc got to him at this point. They don't really fight him. It's weird. They fight like more of the Chaos underlings. And then I think there is one fight with Noob, but then they don't even fight him. Yeah, right here. I'm trying to refresh too, sorry, my memory. But yeah, they don't even end up fighting him. They end up fighting his underlings, like I said. Alternate versions, Chaos versions of like literally like the same handful of characters. They don't even show everybody in the MK1 roster. And then Scorpion, yeah, the last fight, Scorpion does fight Noob. Oh no, Scorpion doesn't fight Noob because this is still Tanya's. Yeah, Scorpion's just there. He doesn't even do anything the entire time. So Scorpion attacks Noob, but it's still Tanya's chapter, so he's a cameo. Yeah. So Tanya ends up beating Noob, sure. And then Noob is immediately on their side because Liu Kang, Fire God Liu Kang, does, after he is defeated, does quickly fix his mental state, kind of like what they did with Ermac, at least temporarily. So they restored a piece of his, you know, his normal soul, but beyond, even normal Bihan is still a jerk. But at least in his right mind, he can want vengeance on Havoc, who just turned him into even more of a monster. So now, we get into the final chapter of this DLC, which is Noob Saibot's. He's immediately on the side of right or good or whatever now. Noob Saibot's chapter. So now they remember that they realize that Havoc is going to the gateways, because I gotta rewind again because I just remembered an important part. Havoc was in possession of the Kamidogos, you know, those things from the earlier games that gave all the power that Shujinko was corrupted into getting for Onaga, who Shujinko is a cameo in the game, and they don't utilize him at all in this Chaos story. And Onaga is mentioned so many times, even in this game, and they don't utilize him as a boss at all in this story. So, after they defeated Noob, they got in possession of all the Kamidogos again that were in the Chaos Realm, and they took them back home to Earth Realm. I believe they went to the Shirai Ryu Temple or whatever. Now, this is the dumbest thing ever. Again, when I said about how like 5 people went to the Chaos Realm to stop Havoc, and or to rescue Geras or whatever, and to, you know, kind of stop the world from ending. In this chapter, with all the Kamidogos, all the power in the universe, Liu Kang really tells like 3 people to bring it to a special place that Havoc wouldn't be able to reach them. But he wouldn't be able to reach them until they get there. So he entrusted the fate of the world into like 3 people. But it doesn't matter anyways. Because as soon as he does that, Havoc shows up at the Shiryu temple, I'm assuming it was. And all hell breaks loose again. You know, Havoc immediately becomes in possession of the Kamidogos. Again, Liu Kang does nothing. Geras does nothing. Scorpion does nothing. And there's like they can't use anybody else apparently. Outworld again. Outworld doesn't exist. We don't care about Outworld at all in this DLC. They have bigger problems that will never be shown in the DLC ever. Forget about Outworld. We can't help. They can't help us. Oh my. All right. I gotta get through this. So Havoc shows up. He gets in possession of the Kamidogos almost immediately. Surprise, surprise. And then he goes all Thanos and puts them on his chest. So now he's the most powerful, quote-unquote, person in the world or whatever. A fight ensues again. We're fighting more Chaos versions. And then we're playing as Noob now. So we're fighting more Chaos versions. Noob does a fatality on a few people. He's still not, you know, obviously it's beyond, so he's not level-headed or anything at all, but these are Chaos people anyways, so I don't care. It doesn't really matter. Liu Kang is like, oh, why are you taking out people, pretty much, and he's just like, it doesn't matter, like I said. So we're like, yeah, okay. Now we're trying to stop Havoc. Liu Kang says he's gonna recruit more help. Literally, like 10 people go through the gateway, the portal, for the final confrontation with Havoc, with Lord Havoc, who has all the Kamidogos on his chest now. Among those 10 people are Noob Saibot, Liu Kang, Geras, Cyrax, Sector. The Earthrealmers of MK1 briefly show back up again to do nothing. That includes both versions of Johnny, because they needed his 1944 version too, right? Kung Lao, Raiden, again, not Titan Raiden, because a world-ending crisis, God forbid Titan Katana or a Titan Raiden, who are in the story, in the timeline, are able to help at all. And then the only other person that really shows up besides any of the basic like Earthrealmers or the other DLC people that I mentioned is Ashura. Because Ashura is technically Netherrealm. That's the only explanation I can have for it. But she doesn't do anything. She doesn't say anything. She just kind of runs in a corner. Like most of them. They don't do or show anything. They just kind of there. And again, like I said, he brings like 10 people to this fight, which is more or less the same fight that MK1's BS story ended with, but at least that showed that it was with a pyramid and that it was Armageddon. So they showed like hundreds of, different versions of themselves. I don't want that again. But this man literally doesn't bring anybody from Outworld. He doesn't bring any Shaolin monks or Shirai Ryu or, any clans at all. He doesn't bring his Titan consorts, whether that be lover or friend, aka Titan Raiden and Titan Katana. He brings like 8 or 9 people that I mentioned who don't do anything, of course. So, more battles, break out. We end up like fighting ourselves or different versions of ourselves, because it's like, I think it was Scorpion as a cameo for Noob, and we end up fighting cameo Scorpion and cameo Sub-Zero. And then in reverse, which I want to brush on real quick, that happens like 3 or 4 times in the DLC, where they have the same fight but twice. So they make you fight the cameo version. They make you fight a version like let's say Sub-Zero and Scorpion as a cameo, and then they'll do a loading cutscene, because I played a lot of FromSoft games and I can spot a cutscene a mile away. They do the loading cutscene transition, and then they make you fight the reversal. So then they'll make you fight Scorpion as the main fighter and Sub-Zero as the cameo. And then also, even when they use the main roster cameos, they all have the same exact setup for a Fatal Blow too, because they couldn't even be bothered to animate different startups. So they all just punch you in the face. If you're using a main roster cameo, they didn't even bother to like animate different, combinations, even for just the story, because obviously the story is all pre-rendered. So they couldn't even be bothered, the fights and everything, they couldn't even be bothered to animate any of those different movesets. Cash grab. So we do the same fight in reversal twice, and it's supposed to be like how Liu Kang and Kung Lao, I believe, fought their counterparts in MK11, but that was completely different, and that had so much soul in it, because those were their future selves that were also undead. It wasn't just, oh, we're fighting some jerk off. The Liu Kang and Kung Lao fight had so much meaning when they found their counterparts in MK11, because they were fighting their future selves. They weren't just fighting some knockoff generic alternate what if version of themselves. They were fighting their future selves that were also the undead revenants, and saw what their future had in store for them. It was an emotional journey. This is just like, what if another Raph had long hair or whatever? Like, why do I care? It's not me. It has nothing to do with me, So again, like everything in this game, nothing happens, doesn't have any meaning, doesn't have any weight or whatever. Even though literally the chapter is called Family Squabble, right? There's some little banter between Bihan, who's in his right mind, Noob Saibot, right as of right now. Well, he's coherent right now. He's not being brainwashed or anything. He's himself, Bihan's self, but still. There's a little argument between him and Scorpion, Kuali-Ying, which is amusing. Again, I'll talk about what I did like in another video, more in depth. But they basically fight different timeline versions of themselves. Has no impact. The final confrontation, I believe this is when they pair Noob up with Liu Kang, but Liu Kang's just a cameo, because I guess they needed a reason to justify why why New would win anything, especially Lord Havoc, who's a Titan who also has all the Kamidogos attached to his body. I guess maybe they just assume, you know, we're gonna put the Fire God Titan with them too. So just make it sound like he had assistance, even if it's not shown he had assistance. Now this chapter is called Father and Son because, again, what this DLC likes to do is just put all these random people in relationships, whether they're related by blood or by marriage. In this case, this is Takeda and Kenshi, Chaos versions, father and son, that you're fighting, which does make sense. They are related in all the timelines too, but again, they just throw random fights in there to have with no impacts, because these are just random different versions, what if versions of people. Like, it has nothing to do with anything. And the very last battle, chapter, whatever you want to call it, Havoc decides that he is against all odds, even though he has a giant laser attached to his chest now, because I'll get to that, but that's what the fight ensues. He has all the rings, oh, excuse me, not rings. He has all the Kamidogu stones on his chest, so he's the most powerful being in the world, whatever. But he can't take on more than one person. So what he does is he starts dismembering himself and making multiple clones of himself, as you can see on screen right now. And basically just to give minions to fight the 10 people that Liu Kang brought with him. And then the final fight is here. What we've all been waiting for. What we spent at least $50 on. It's between Noob Saibot with Liu Kang as a cameo, with Power of All Being Lord Havoc, and a random of his clones or whatever as a cameo. This man just spams a laser that he can shoot out of his chest now over and over again. That's the only move that his power gave him. And all I could think about, and I don't know if this was intentional too or not, but all I could think about was an MK9 with Shao Kahn. When Shao just spammed the hammer throw over and over again. And if you're truly a fan of the franchise, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And an MK9, which was in like 2000, 11, 10 or whatever, which also game started development before that, you know, so it was running on, it was a 362, I believe, right? Yeah. So it was running on 360 hardware or PlayStation 3 hardware. And it was also, you know, running on like whatever the gameplay mechanics abilities were in 2009 or whatever, because like I said, when it starts development, or 2010, not saying exactly when it was released, but what, you know, what gaming was for the capacity back then. And it still had a hell of a lot of soul in the story and everything. That's all he does. He does have his normal Havoc abilities, but pretty much they program him to just shoot a laser at you from his chest, from the Kamidogos, over and over again. He has all the power stones pretty much on his chest, and they clearly, like, if they wanted to make him, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but if they were trying to make him like Thanos, they could have showed him stopping time. They could have showed him lifting you in the air. They could have showed him creating multiples of himself. They could have showed him creating an illusion of himself. They could have showed him, you know, so many abilities. But all he does is just shoot a laser at you the entire time in the fight. Again, I personally enjoyed MK11 a lot. But even if you didn't, you can't argue with the fact that the fight with Kronika had a hell of a lot more abilities than whatever this DLC does. Or whatever the main MK1 story did with the BS that they pulled with the crappy Shang and Quan Chi duo. And that's all he does until you beat him. Even if you lose to him, it just asks you to rematch. And there's no like alternate ending or anything. And I was praying within all my being that there was more. Spoiler, if you made it this far, there's not. After this fight ensues, where it's Noob Saibot, who is just Bihan at this point too. Like, he has Noob's abilities, but he's also still irrational, you know, hot-headed Bihan. Somehow defeats not only a Titan, but a Titan with how many? 7 Kamidogos on his chest? With Liu Kang as a cameo. It doesn't even... It doesn't even... Oh my god, I can't even... It doesn't even show Liu Kang, like, taking over for, like, the final encounter or whatever. If I remember correctly, what ends up happening is that Noob also, with his newfound shadow powers, starts tearing off Havoc's limbs faster than he can regenerate them, so he's just basically like a torso at this point. And that's what ends up stopping him, because he can't do anything. And then they don't even like show what ends up happening after that, because then Noob quickly turns back to, or Bihan quickly turns against Liu Kang. And this is the only time, I mentioned earlier when I started this video, this is the only time that Geras does something, and he stops Noob Saibot from attacking Liu Kang. Like, even if he did attack him, it would do anything. So he freezes him in time. And then the story ends. There's nobody else really talks or anything. No Earthrealmers, no Johnny Quips, nothing. The story ends with Liu Kang putting Bihan, or Noob Saibot, into a coffin and sealing him away, saying that it would take years to reverse his transformation to Noob Saibot. And then, you know what this man really does? This Fire Lord who has knowledge of all the other timelines and lived in some of the other timelines, he puts Sector in charge of the Linkway. The Sector, who even in this DLC, even in this game, has made it very clear that she is also hot-headed like Bihan, that she is also rash and harsh, and that she is also fond of the cyber initiation of the Linkway. So right now they're wearing power armor, but he puts her in charge, knowing very well that she's probably in like, we'll be generous, less than a year, gonna turn everybody into cyborgs. But he's like, yeah, you can be Grandmaster while Bihan's away. And then that's it. And then the game ends. And nothing happens. As I stated already, I was really hoping there was more. As I stated already, they didn't even use 90% of their, not even base roster, but also the cameos too. If they wanted to do anything with the story, which is a chaos story, Sujinko, especially with the Kamidogo Sujinko cameo, should have got the same treatment as Chameleon did. Got some voice lines, got some footage. Onaga should have been the final boss. They mentioned him too, even in this game. Jackson Briggs and General Blade, they could have did some other. They mentioned General Blade in the DLC, and it could have been an older version, but they could have did. They've been gender bending all this time. They could have did different versions of them, just showed them briefly or whatever, instead of making a second Johnny like we needed another Johnny on top of MK1's Johnny. There's Frost. Frost shows up in the cameo, as a cameo, in the Chaos Realm in a couple chapters back. I'm like 99% sure she doesn't have any voice lines. They give her a few fight scenes, but she has no voice lines whatsoever. They could have made her a part of the story too. She is a Lin Kuei, or was a Lin Kuei. They could have made her a part of the story. That's the only one I can kind of forgive, because they might have not wanted to do that, because she did get that treatment kind of in the last game. Or she did get that treatment in the last game, should I say. But Stryker, as a cameo, if they needed random Earthrealmers, they could have easily put him in as an extra Earthrealmer. And that's what really, yeah, like, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's what I'm saying. That's what bothers me so much, that even, like, I'm all for giving them a benefit of the doubt. Games are expensive, even though they're charging $50 for just the base DLC, so they definitely got their money's worth. But games are expensive, they're difficult to make and everything like that. I get that. So I try to be very understanding when it comes to the capacity, or when costs need to be cut. Which is why I state they didn't need to utilize any other characters from other timelines or other games, you know, even though they're probably somewhere in their universe. I get that they don't need to show cameos and everything like that. They did that in MKX and everybody hated it when they were showing a bunch of random people that weren't playable too. So I get that aspect. They only want to show people that are more or less playable. But that's why they don't even utilize half of the MK1 roster, or 80% of the MK1 roster in the DLC. They also don't utilize any of the cameos, which I just gave a bunch of explanations on how they can easily utilize them into the story, especially Sujinko. There's absolutely no reason that Sujinko and Onaga should not be part of the Chaos storyline. Also, Hotaru, which is part of Order Realm, would have made more sense to be the final encounter against Havoc. Have him even show up. They don't utilize any of that. They don't even show Order Realm. They do. Like I said, I'm going to make another video about what I the things that I did like, but more in depth. But Netherrealm isn't shown at all. Earthrealm is just shown with the Shirai Ryu. Outworld, same thing, isn't shown at all. They never leave the palace throne room. Besides that one scene, that's the best we're gonna get. Although, like, it was part of the MK1 story a bunch, so I don't mind that. But we're talking about the Chaos storyline now, and they don't even mention any of the other realms. And even if you're just going from Earthrealm and well, Ashra does show up briefly at the end, like I said, in the final fight, but she's from the Netherrealm, so they don't give her any lines or do anything or whatever. Even if you're just going based off of Earthrealm, should we say? Liu Kang brings 10 people to the final confrontation. Quite literally, 10 people. They don't bring any of the Shaolin monks. They don't bring any of the Shirai Ryu. They don't bring any Earthrealm soldiers. They don't bring anyone. They bring 10 people who the only people who get like voice lines or whatever, besides the DLC, is another version of Johnny and Scorpion, who does nothing. Literally nothing. I don't even know why he's here. I guess they needed him because they wanted to make chapters about Noob and Cyrax and Sector, so it would be weird if Scorpion was nowhere to be found. But he doesn't do anything whatsoever. And then the game just ends. No Onaga, no Sujinko, no Hotaro, nothing. Oh, and then Scorpion says Cyrax can become a Shirai Ryu or whatever. He lets her stay. And that's how the game ends. No, I haven't. I mean, I played around with the animalities a little bit. I haven't played any of the Towers of Time. I'm sure the Tower of Time is going to be better when I do play it, because they replace the gateways, and if it's anything like MK11's Towers of Time, it's definitely a huge improvement. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go back. I know I keep saying this, but I'm gonna make a video when I'm just talking about the story right now, because this was terrible. Honestly, this was worse than the MK1 story in the last like 4 chapters of MK1 story. This entire DLC was absolutely awful in a whole. But yeah, I'm not even gonna touch on. I don't want to get into any other content that the game may come with or whatever. But actually, all that other content isn't part of paid DLC, so it actually is irrelevant at this point. Because the point that I'm making is that bare minimum, you have to pay $50 for this crap, where you play as total Cyrax, Sector, Tanya, Rain, Tanya, and Noob Saibot. And that's how the game ends. And there's no defending that. The DLCs are fine if you want to throw them in for some chapters, whatever, but there needs to be another 1 or 2 chapters in there where they be realistic, even in their crazy MK world, on how they're going to defeat, if they must make Havoc the endgame boss, how they're going to defeat not only a Titan, which it took, Liu Kang becoming a demigod or a half god or whatever to defeat a Titan, but also a Titan that has 7, I believe there was 7 you can correct me if I'm wrong, 7 Kamidogos attached to his to his chest, which makes him the most powerful being at this moment. How you're gonna have Bihan, it's not even Noob Saibot at this point because he just got his memory reversed or whatever. So it's just Bihan, who is arrogant and rash, with the Liu Kang cameo, defeat the most powerful being in all the world. Even if you're going with this BS crap of Havoc being the final boss, because they couldn't be bothered to bring back Onaga. Make that make sense. Oh boy. As I said before, in every other game, it actually makes sense who defeated the final boss, even in MKX, with Johnny Cage and Cassie Cage defeating Shinnok, because if you know the lore, you know that those Johnny Cage, or that Johnny Cage and subsequently Cassie Cage bloodline was bred by the Elder Gods for the very purpose of defeating Shinnok should he ever escape his prison. So it makes sense that they had the power to do so. It makes no sense that MK1's Bihan could defeat even a crappy boss like Havoc, who, again, to reiterate, he has 7 Kamidogos attached to his chest, and all he does is shoot a laser over and over again, like he's some crappy random generated MK9 Shao Kahn who doesn't have a moveset. And the most ironic thing about this too, because after I say that statement out loud, is that in MK9, the easiest way to, or one of the easiest ways to defeat Shao Kahn, who did spam the hammer and over again, was to use Noob Saibot, because he can get behind him, because he could do teleports and all that other stuff. So it actually was, when you were doing character endings, it was the easiest way to defeat Shao Kahn in MK9 was to use Noob Saibot. But yeah, Outworld is nowhere to be found in this entire game DLC, besides that one scene. But they're too busy in dialogue to worry about General Shao, who escaped prison, according to Liu Kang. And that's why nobody from Outworld can help do anything, apparently. So, nobody from Outworld, Empress Melina, War Chief Katana, can't do anything. Nope. The world's ending. You can't do anything. Nobody from Order Realm can show up in this chaos story. Nobody from the Nether Realm besides Ashra in the very final chapter to do absolutely nothing, like everyone, can show up in this world ending fight. Even people from Earth Realm, like I said, the Shirai Ryu can't show up. Regular soldiers can't show up. The Lin Kuei can't show up. Nobody can show up. Besides the DLC and a bunch of random Earthrealmers who don't do anything. Sujinko cannot show up in this storyline. Who is a cameo and can easily be given voice lines and gameplay same as Chameleon. And this is why I can't possibly recommend this DLC to anybody until wait a month. Hopefully it'll drop down to like $20 or whatever. Buy it then. And the most grievance is that they make you buy the bare minimum. They make you buy the DLC characters with the story. They don't give you an option to just buy the story or just buy the characters or whatever. They do that because it's a cash grab. Absolutely nothing happens in this story. They reuse a lot of fights. They even bare minimum, they don't even like show 80% of the roster. They briefly show MK1 Sanya in like a background, no voice lines, nothing, because she has an alternate version as a chapter. Rain not being in the DLC, or regular Rain makes sense because he's probably on the run because Belina wants his head, so that makes sense. Alternate version of him gets a chapter. Fine, whatever. Ermac, nowhere to be found. Besides that one chapter where he's a Chaos version. And I'm pretty sure, actually, I don't even think he has a voice line there either. Oh yeah, on top of it, the biggest grievances, like I said, I had Sujenko's not in the story at all. Nobody from Order Realm, nobody from Nether Realm besides Ashura for half a second. Nobody from Outworld can help him. Titan Katana and Titan Raiden are both in this timeline. And they don't think to stop a world-ending event. They're nowhere in this DLC. And Titan Raiden is OG Raiden, who is voiced by OG Raiden. His voice actor also reprises a role right here for his Chaos version. You can tell it's not MK1's Raiden, who does have a couple voice lines too, but also again, even the Earthrealmers don't do anything the entire DLC. Besides making another Johnny because we needed a second version of Johnny, because this isn't a cash grab at all. And I'm being sarcastic. But they gave his Chaos Raiden the voice of OG Raiden. But Titan Katana and Titan Raiden can't be anywhere to be found. So even in this crappy DLC, it would have been good if they finally finished their wedding, because Scorpion and Harumi's wedding didn't even start. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, in the first chapter, the amount of laziness Smoke, Raiden, MK1 Raiden, MK1 Johnny Cage, who are all in the background, have on their normal fighting outfits. So just picture that in your head. They're at a wedding and they have on their combat outfits. They can't even be dressed for a wedding. That's what started this game. That was the kickoff to this DLC, and that's the wave that they rode through the entire amount of laziness. I gotta end it there, because this is... I didn't care for Aftermath's story for the simple fact of what they did to the story of MK11, because I did enjoy that one with the 180 and they just, you know, messed everything up. But they messed it up in, dare I say, a good way. They showed arcs. They reprised Shing's original actor, who did a phenomenal job. They brought in the DLC characters like this DLC does, but they gave them so much more depth with Fujin and Nightwolf, and they had this. They showed their special moves and they showed their abilities, and you know, there was so much heart and soul into the DLC. They cared about it. Even though, like I said, I didn't care about what they were trying to do. But then they also gave you alternate endings. They gave you multiple choices. This game, you don't even get an alternate ending. Like, if you lose to Havoc, it just says rematch. And actually, a little box pops up at the bottom every time you lose. And it says, there's no cutscenes or anything. It just says, it only happened to me twice. And one of them was fair because it was freaking Havoc. And like I said, all he does is shoot lasers. So I wasn't expecting him to just spam lasers over and over again. But all it says is, so-and-so character lost. And that's it. Like, and Havoc rules or whatever, you know, some generic something. At the very last fight, you should at least have an alternate cutscene or an alternate ending if Havoc does end up winning. You know, but that's more of a minor complaint. There's more pressing issues that are so wrong with this DLC. Now, like I said, I haven't got into any of the online stuff, but that's irrelevant for the simple fact that, like, the animalities, I did see all the animalities, and they're a cool addition, but the animalities, the map updates, that stuff's all included. So that we're talking about the DLC right now. We're talking about the price point. We're talking about what you are forced to pay if you wanted whatever it was, 2 hours more of story that they did so lazily. That you also forced into, because there's, like I said, there's no way you can choose between the DLC or the combat pack. You have to get both. But I'm gonna end it there because I don't want to keep ranting. There's absolutely nothing anarchic, even in Chaos Realm, about this DLC. And I cannot recommend it to anybody. Here's my recommendation. Wait till it goes on sale if you never already buy it. Ref out.